In this video, I'm going to be comparing one of the most popular hybrid terrain tires you can get, the Nitto Ridge Grappler, to one of the most aggressive all-terrains you can get, the Nitto Recon Grappler AT. Alright, let's get to it. Let's first talk about hybrid terrain tires, why they even exist, what this category has really been, and why you haven't really seen a lot of category growth in it in general. So this is the Nitto Ridge Grappler, and to me, it's everything that you would want in a hybrid tire. The idea of a hybrid tire is that you're mixing mud terrain aspects with a traditional all-terrain. So mud terrain is going to be larger lugs, deeper voids, big spacing, aggressive tread pattern. An all-terrain is going to be more sipes. It's going to be something that has better wet weather ejection and going to be something that's going to roll a little bit smoother and ultimately be as quiet as possible while still giving you good off-road performance. You're really asking a lot out of the tire. It's really what everybody wants, a tire that can do everything. And unfortunately, when you get to more aggressive off-road tires that you really need for good mud ejection, it's really hard to make those things quiet and you really don't see them with a lot of sipe. So this is really a good marriage of that. The negatives of a hybrid terrain tire in my experience have been they just don't have as much wet weather traction as a traditional all-terrain tire. And so when you're balancing out, well, I need more off-road performance, you're going to have to lose some performance somewhere else, and that typically is going to be wet weather traction. You're not really going to find these hybrid terrain tires that are 3-peak rated. They're just really not designed for that. Now, why I think this category has kind of hit a stalemate and why there isn't like a Ridge Grappler 2.0 is that I don't think you can make this tire any more aggressive and still call it a hybrid terrain. I think it's basically going to be a mud terrain if these lugs get any bigger and the tread pattern gets any more aggressive. I think this is it. You're just going to be limited, and it's really hard because you're seeing all terrains kind of come up to this hybrid terrain category. They're getting more and more aggressive, and that's why I want to talk about the Recon Grappler and really kind of how it compares to this now. Now, in the all-terrain category, the Recon Grappler is more aggressive, that is for sure. It's got larger blocks, larger sidewall, it's got a little bit more of a stagger than what you would find in a traditional all-terrain, but it also doesn't have as many sipes as you would see in a traditional all-terrain, and it's not a 3-peak rated tire. So you have definitely a more what I call off-road centric all-terrain tire, which is a good thing if that's what you're looking for. What I really think is a big calling card of the Recon at this point, and was definitely not available a few years ago, is the fact that you have so many sizing options with the Recon that you don't have with a lot of other tire manufacturers on the market. A great example of this is it is offered in a 37 by 1150 R17. So if you're trying to put it under a stock Wrangler or a F-150 and you don't want to have that extra poke, you want to keep that stock wheel, this is a really good option for that. And I think you're going to be seeing more and more of those narrower options so people can maintain that stock wheel. It's not going to upset your scrub radius. You're really going to get better handling out of that in many respects. So I think that's a huge deal. Something else that's really worth noting that at the time wasn't as prevalent because they didn't have as many sizes when I did this original comparison quite a few years ago is the Recon Grappler is a good bit lighter than the Ridge Grappler, and that's obviously going to be a good thing from a performance and fuel economy standpoint. So if you're trying to get the most efficient tire under your vehicle and still have something that's really competent to go off-road, I think the Recon is really excellent for that. Where these two tires just really differ drastically is going to be wet weather performance. My experience has been, even though the Recon Grappler doesn't really look like it has that much more siping than the Ridge Grappler, its wet weather performance is significantly better than the Ridge Grappler. I mean, there's just really not a comparison in how much better this tread configuration works in the rain and the sipes overall. So if you're really looking to try to figure out, hey, which is the better tire in wet weather, 100% it's the Recon Grappler. Even though I do think that the Ridge Grappler is the better off-road tire, The Recon Grappler, in my experience, is the better all-around tire. All that being said, both tires are great options, and though a Recon Grappler AT would have no doubt been the better choice for something like my 2025 Ford Raptor R that isn't going to see any serious off-road conditions, I'm still a hillbilly at heart and love the look of an aggressive tire, so that's why I put a 37 by 1250 R17 Nitto Ridge Grappler under that truck. For those curious, these wheels are Method 318s in gloss black. It's a 17 by 8.5 with 5.7 inches of back spacing. All that being said, if we're going to talk about all-terrains, it's worth mentioning the latest all-terrain on the market. And that's this. It's a Terra Grappler G3, and it's really the most traditional all-terrain evolution that Nitto has in their category. It has more sipes, it's got more evacuation channels for water to go through. This is a 3-peak rated tire. It's a little bit quieter than the Recon, just like the Recon is a little bit quieter than the Ridge Grappler, and this is your more traditional all-terrain tire. What I think is really interesting about this is Nitto's kind of taking a different approach with this, in that I noticed the other day that there's some new tire sizes coming, and what I thought was interesting about those tire sizes is that this tire is going to be offered in a load range C in multiple enthusiast sizes. So you can get a 35 by 1150 for a 17 and a 35 by 1250 in a 17 for a load range C. That's a huge deal. Essentially, you're going to be able to get a much lighter sidewall, so it's going to be a more, I'll just say, cush ride right out of the gate versus you having to drop the air pressure because you moved up to a load range D. So that's a big deal. This is probably the lightest of the tires compared. So the Ridge Grappler is heavier than the Recon Grappler, and the Recon Grappler is heavier than the Terra Grappler G3. My experience with this tire is going to be, I put these under my wife's 2024 Ford Bronco. She has no complaints with them. We have taken the vehicle off-road for some light wheeling. The vehicle mostly sees on-road conditions, and we get a lot of rain here in North Carolina, so I wanted to make sure she had something that had a lot of sipes for that, and it's been very good for that. Ultimately, I get this question a lot, especially about the Ridge Grappler versus Recon Grappler. You know, look, what are the big differences? It really comes down to the noise difference between these two tires is pretty minimum. It really comes down to wet weather performance. The Recon Grappler is just better in wet weather than the Ridge. It just is. And this tire is a little bit better than the Recon Grappler. So those are your, that's the honest truth in terms of differences between these. If you've got any questions, just drop them in the comments. If you want to see some stuff I'm working on behind the scenes, you can check me out at all social media at Ollie Mansour Editor. As always, I appreciate you guys watching these videos. With any luck, hope to see you on the trail. Take care.